Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Rundown. I will be your host today, Craig DeLuz, coming at you from the West Coast, the left coast, behind the Iron Curtain, otherwise known as the Sierras. And today is Monday, Fun Day, Gun Day, and we're bringing it to you.
Used to. I look money, a king bee making honey. See, each state I hope you're ready for me. Now gather round, I'm the new sheriff in town. All my people rise up and stand your ground. Now drink up all the Diet Coke you got on your shelf. So just let me introduce myself. My name is Trump D. I like my mashed potatoes lumpy. Fake news, oh how I like the punk thing. That little sniper on the slow tin. He took a shot but he missed me. I don't fall, y'all. I'm like the ever ready bunny. Still going strong and spunky. So put on your big boy pants. Come on, let's do the dance.
The Trumpy dance is your chance to do the Trump.
Come on, do the Trumpy Trump. Come on and do the Trumpy Trump. Check me out, y'all. We do the Trumpy Trump. Just watch me do the Trumpy Trump. Yeah. Do you know what I'm doing? We do the Trumpy Trump. Come on, everybody do the Trumpy Trump. It's time to do the Trumpy Trump. Yeah, my favorite.
That's right. We're doing it like we do every Monday because, it's kind of hard to do it even on Monday because he's working all weekend. So, I mean, we could easily just say, it's the beginning of the work week and Trump is back to work. But the reality is he seems to be working 24/7, 365. I guess you could say we'll play it in celebration of all the winning that he's done over the weekend. How about that one? Yeah, anyway, good stuff is happening in Washington, D.C. Bad things are happening in Washington, D.C. because, well, we all know the deep state is there and they're active and they're doing their thing. But we're also here and we're doing our thing. In fact, we're taking your comments. If you're watching this show live, 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern, we're taking your comments. So go ahead and let us know what you think. Let us know if you like what we have to say. Let us know if you don't like what we have to say. We don't require you to agree with us in order for us to read your comments. We just need them to be interesting. And, we just say that if you disagree with us, we'll just know that we reserve the right to mock you. Plain and simple. It's your show, then guess what? You can go and you can mock people on your show. But this is my show. So our show, me and Mike. So anyway, let's go ahead and get into the program. But before we do, you know what we have to do? We have to start with a quick shout out to our sponsors. And that's going to start with our friends over at Hitman Industries. That's right, Hitman Industries. Rifle and pistol caliber barrels available for you to purchase at any length. Just go to hitmanindustries.net. Then you've got the California Republican Assembly working to help elect conservatives at all level of government, from school board all the way up to President of the United States. Check them out at cragop.org. That's cragop.org. If you want to be a part of California's future today, you got to join CRA. And then we've got the best in concealed carry tactical holsters available on the market. All you have to do is go to hogholsters.com. That's right. Helping Americans wear guns. That's how you spell hog, H-A-W-G, helping Americans wear guns. And by the way, when you go there, make sure you use the discount code The Rundown. All caps, no spaces, one word, and get your discount today. Or get your holster on discount today. And then finally, if you have a group and you are looking to do some purchases, some tactical gear purchases, I mean, it's starting to get summertime, which means you're going to need some hot weather gear. You may need water bottles. You may need lids. You may need backpacks. You may need boots. You may need whatever. Cold weather. You may need wet weather gear. Who knows? Whatever you need, you can find all things tactical except the gun at uscombatgear.com. Go there, check them out today, and make sure you tell them it was the guys over at The Rundown that sent you. All right, let's go ahead and get into. By the way, if you haven't already done so, please make sure like, share, subscribe. Like, share, subscribe. Once again, encourage your friends to do the same. You might have heard there was another terrorist incident, another anti-Israel or anti-Zionist terrorist attack that took place over the weekend. And I wanted to kind of share with you a little bit about what we know and what we don't know, but some of the media act like they want to know, and some of the response to some of the things that have gone on. And quite frankly, a lot of it is stuff that we pretty much expected. Okay, so first of all, reporting from ABC News, Boulder attack suspect charged with federal hate crime and he said he wanted to kill all Zionist people. At least that's what the court documents say. I'll read a little bit of the story here. It says a man suspected of carrying suspected of carrying out an act of terrorism during a pro-Israel demonstration in Boulder, Colorado, leaving 8 people in the hospital, has been charged with a federal hate crime. The state charges, including 16 counts of an attempted first-degree murder, according to court documents. Now, here's some of the details that were reported on the scene almost immediately within an hour or so, a couple of hours of the incident happening.
The initial response by our officers, we were on scene very quickly. When we arrived, we encountered multiple victims that were injured with injuries consistent with burns and other injuries. While our officers and paramedics and fire department personnel got those victims quickly to the hospital, our officers were pointed out, a suspect was pointed out to our officers on the scene. Our officers immediately encountered that suspect who was taken into custody without incident. That suspect, who I'm not able to ID at this time, was taken to the hospital with some minor injuries as well. And there's a lot more we're investigating right now before I'm able to release information on that person. The scene itself is contained, but we have a large area here in downtown Boulder closed off right now. Businesses have been closed, and we have asked people to avoid the area. This area is not safe yet. We're dealing with a vehicle of interest. We're dealing with a large area that we are making sure it's safe before we allow people to come back into the scene. So what I will tell you, on Pearl Street, it's a walking pedestrian mall downtown here. There was a lot of people out. Very beautiful day. There was a group of pro-Israel people that were there in a peaceful demonstration. I wouldn't even call it a protest. I believe that happens frequently down here. They were there in that area. We are looking and actively interviewing victims and witnesses to determine if that group was targeted or others, and we just don't have those answers yet. So I've been in contact with our local FBI.
Okay, so just so you know, we do now know. Obviously we're further removed from it. The people who were there were not necessarily protesters, but they were there and they were calling for the release of the remaining Israeli hostages. And that's really what it was. So it was a pro-Israeli group, once again, encouraging the release of the hostages. Here's also now a report coming from Fox News, and it gives you a little bit more detail about the stuff that we know now.
We have some new details. Federal authorities releasing the charges for the man accused of setting 8 people on fire in that targeted terror attack in Boulder, Colorado. Officials say he's now being charged with a hate crime that's federally. And this is what they found. They found at least 14 unlit Molotov cocktails on his person, along with that makeshift flamethrower. The Molotovs comprised of glass wine carafe bottles or ball jars containing clear liquid and red rags hanging out of the bottles. He made these himself. In fact, it says that he researched on YouTube how to do this. And later, during an interview with the officials, the suspect stated outright, and he's talking, he stated he wanted to, quote, kill all Zionist people and wished they were all dead. He also stated that he would do it again. Emily, he also said during this interview he specifically targeted the Zionist group that had gathered in Boulder. He knew they planned to meet that day, Sunday at 1 p.m. He arrived at 12:55 and waited for them.
I love that he also...
So it's important to note, he knew that they were meeting. If he knew that they were meeting, then he knew the purpose of the meeting. He knew the purpose of the get together, and that was to call for the release of the hostages. They weren't even necessarily pro-Israel. They were just release the hostages. They were more pro releasing the hostages than anything else. Well, all of that having been said, it's interesting that there are a couple of other things that we know about this individual. We know that he is an immigrant from Egypt. We know that he has overstayed his visa, so he's actually in the country illegally. And the interesting thing about it is that the New York Times, in their reporting, actually left out the fact that he was illegal, left out the fact that he was Egyptian. Left out the fact that dude was his name was Mohammed Salman, which I'm like, okay, if you know his name, you know he's not a white guy. But oh, by the way, that did not stop the folks over at MSNBC from reporting that a white guy had been arrested.
investigation itself, we're still trying to verify and confirm some video, but it appears to show a significant portion of the incident as it happened. There's an individual that's taken into custody. He's a white male. Whether or not that's the person that police ultimately arrested and will ultimately charge in this crime, a bit of a question at this time, but that's just what we've seen so far.
So yeah, MSNBC decided to report that white guy got arrested. And if you look at the video of the guy, well, I'll be fair enough, and I'll let you take a look at some video. This video here segment includes some of the guy. You tell me if this guy, if he looks like a white guy to you.
We're here, brother. We're here. We can't do nothing about that. We can't do nothing.
We can!
Not here.
Not
here, bro.
Okay, so yeah, I can see where they thought the guy was a white guy. I can see where they thought that. But they probably should have waited to figure that out because, if it had been a person of color, number one, they wouldn't have if they went this way. If they had thought he was a person of color, they wouldn't have said anything. They wouldn't have said anything about what race he was, especially if they found out that he was Muslim. They wouldn't have said anything about him being Egyptian or him being Palestinian or him being, if they had known any of that, if he had turned out he had been black, definitely wouldn't have said anything. But this was, once again, their attempt. I really do believe, rather than stoking racial hatred, I do believe that it was their attempt. It was a rush to be first. And this is one of the problems that you have oftentimes with the media is that when you're rushing, your biases start to show themselves. And in this particular case, they wanted to be able to say it was a white man. It was a white man who did this. Hey, everybody, look! It wasn't a person of color. It wasn't a Middle Eastern person. So stop saying that it's a hate crime. It was a white. Wait, what? It was a Middle Eastern guy. Oops. That's kind of how it went down. Anyway, the thing about this is, and this is whether it's this guy, whether it's the guy who shot the two Israeli diplomats, whether it's the students who are protesting on campus, one of the things is for sure is that between the media, between the anti-Israel media, between the media elites in academia and in entertainment and in politics, they're the ones who are stoking this sort of stuff. They're the ones that are encouraging this sort of stuff. Their unwillingness to actually stand up against and call out violence and say violence is not acceptable. This is not okay. And by the way, also they need to stop calling the Israelis, stop accusing them of genocide. They're not guilty of genocide. I'm sorry, as I've noted on this program many, many times, 20% of their population is Muslim. When I say their population, I'm not even referring to those who live in Gaza or the West Bank. I'm referring literally to those who live in Israel, those who work, those who worship, those who vote, those who serve in parliament. A growing percentage of them a growing percentage of those who live and work in Israel are actually Muslim. So you don't get to call it a genocide. If they're growing in number, if they're growing in percentage, then that's not a genocide. Or at least either that or Israel really is bad at genocide. Especially when they're putting in, there's significant amount of resources are going into helping to feed those who are in need there in Israel, right? I mean, in Gaza right now. And here's the thing: what they're really trying to be careful of is they're really trying not to trying to make sure that the food and the resources and the things that go into the Middle East, that go into Gaza, they're trying to make sure it doesn't wind up in the hands of Hamas. Because that's what happens to the majority. That's what happened to the majority of anything that goes into anything positive that goes into the Gaza Strip. Almost the overwhelming majority of it winds up in the hands of Hamas. They wind up using it to bolster their supplies, or they wind up selling it in order to raise money so that they can bolster their supplies, including ammunition, yada yada yada. So it. Anyway, all that having been said, there's a whole lot of stuff going on. There's a whole lot of propaganda being pushed out there. And those of you on the left, if you're not condemning this sort of stuff, if you're not condemned, by the way, if you're not condemning the people who are claiming that Israel is engaging in genocide, or if you're one of the ones who are claiming that they are, you're part of the problem. You're part of the people who are encouraging this stuff. Yes, you are contributing to it. You don't think you are, you don't believe you are. Trust me, you are. There's not a doubt in my mind that your rhetoric and your lack of understanding of what's going on in the situation is helping to add to the problem. So anyway, that's all the stuff that we know. We know basically dude is a straight up anti-Israel, anti-Jewish racist, and he just wanted to kill. He wanted to kill people who wanted to support Israel. That's pretty much it. And we know that the left is going to continue to lie about it. But then again, they lie about everything. That's right. They lie about everything, including, for example, the death and destruction that is going to occur because of the quote unquote, because of the proposed Medicaid cuts. Now, the funny part about all of this is, and we've already talked about all this, but people are wondering, they say, oh, well, Rosie O'Donnell, that's what we talked about last week. Rosie O'Donnell, she's a comedian. Not only is she a comedian, she's a washed up comedian. No one really pays attention to her, and she doesn't really know what she's talking about anyway. She's not like she's part of, the establishment. It's not like she's one of the leaders in the Democratic Party. I mean, who listens to Rosie O'Donnell? Or, well, the question more is, who does Rosie O'Donnell listen to? And I'll tell you who she listens to. She listens to folks like this guy, Mr. Hakeem Jeffries, who also lied. This is something from over at Breitbart. It says exclusive. Hakeem Jeffries lies on Medicaid. Trump's economy debunked. It says here, House Majority Leader Hakeem Jeffries made multiple false statements on President Donald Trump's economy and the Republicans' proposed changes to Medicaid and Obamacare spending, prompting a fact check from the National Republican Congressional Committee. Speaking on the Morning with Zerlina radio show last Thursday, Jeffries repeated the already debunked lie that 13.7 million people will be flown off their health care due to reconciliation bill the House passed last month, which is now under consideration in the Senate. Jeffries claimed, it's reckless. Well, it's a reckless, extreme budget that Republicans are trying to jam down the throats of the American people, lifting up a whole host of right-wing ideas that aren't designed to make life better for the American people, but actually make things worse for the American people at the top. The left-wing congressman said, This is the largest cut to health care in American history. About 13.7 million people will be flown off their health care, both because of the attack on Medicaid as well as the attack on the Affordable Care Act is in this bill at the same time. Jeffries went on to allege that people are going to die if the budget passes the Senate, as if that wasn't enough for these extremists. Despite his outlandish claims about the bill, which found 880 billion in savings by making various changes and cuts to Medicaid, the New York Times had already admitted that the 13.7 million figure was exaggerated by millions. The outlet reported on May 13th that the real number of Americans set to lose their health insurance under the new proposed budget is about 8.6 million, though dozens of left-wing lawmakers, including Senator Bernie Sanders, Pat Murray, and Dick Durbin, have all repeated the falsehood. Proposed changes to the taxpayer-funded healthcare system include increased checks on to verify eligibility for Medicaid, as the program suffers from massive waste, fraud, and abuse. According to House Speaker Mike Johnson, over 1.4 million illegal aliens are on Medicaid. A recent study found that Medicaid doled out $1.1 trillion in improper payments over the last decade, Breitbart reported. That's right, $1.1 trillion. That's over $100 billion a year for 10 years. That's the math right there, folks. $100 billion a year. Let me clarify. over 100 billion a year for the last 10 years. Now, what are some of the changes that they're making to Medicaid that are so drastic? Well, we've already talked about those changes. If you are a non-head of household, working age individual, able-bodied and working age, meaning under 65, you will be required to either work at least 20 hours a week or volunteer for 20 hours a week or show that you're spending 20 hours a week looking for work. That's it. 4 hours a day, Monday through Friday. That's all you are required to do. And show evidence of that. Now, once again, so if you are not a head of household, if you are not a head of household, meaning you don't have kids, and you are able-bodied, meaning it hasn't been deemed, so you're not working because you medically can't work, right? And supposedly, with the unemployment being so low, you ought to be able to find a job. And you can't say, well, what about the working poor? Well, if you're the working poor, then you still qualify for Medicaid, especially if you're working. So I don't get it. So in other words, if you don't look for work, that's really what it is. If you don't look for work and you decide you want to sit on your ass all day and not try to look for work, not try to help out in your community, not do anything all day, every day, then you will lose your Medicaid. If you are claiming Medicaid in multiple states, which we have found to be the case. If you are claiming Medicaid and you are claiming Obamacare, which they found is happening a lot, then you will lose your Medicaid. I'm sorry, is there who in their right mind has any objections to these changes? I'm sorry, think about this. You work for a living. You go to work. You make it a point to go to work. You may not even get paid what you think you're worth. But guess what? You're paying your taxes. You're working. You're paying your taxes. And now your tax dollars are going to pay to somebody who refuses to work. They're able-bodied. There's no reason why they can't work. Because if they weren't able-bodied, they'd qualify for Medicaid. Right? If they're looking for a job, if they're spending time looking for a job, they'll qualify for Medicaid. If they're working but they don't make enough money to pay for insurance, they qualify for Medicaid. What are these people talking about? Who are these poor people who are going to get knocked off Medicaid? I'll tell you who they are. They're individuals who are part of, by the way, right now there are more people, adult, able-bodied people, males in particular, of working age. We're talking Gen Z, Gen X, millennials who are, there's nothing wrong with them. There's no reason they can't work. They just decided they don't want to work and they want to live off the government dime. Because they don't want to work, they're not going to look for work. They're not taking care of kids. So guess what? They've decided that they don't want to play any significant role in taking care of themselves. So why should the rest of us take care of them? Someone explain this to me. Medicaid, when it was originally created, was for the poorest of the poor. Particularly, it was for single moms. It was for single moms so that their kids had coverage, so that they had medical coverage and their kids had coverage. It was for these single moms who probably need, who were on welfare, because they used to be tied together. It used to be tied directly to welfare. But what happened was, when they wanted to sell the Affordable Care Act or sell Obamacare, they expanded who was eligible for Medicaid. And so all of these freeloaders got on board. Oh, by the way, I almost forgot. Those who are in the country illegally, yeah, you got them on there too. California is one of the states that's actually in trouble for actually doing that, for putting them on Medicaid, for using the Medicaid dollars to pay for medical coverage for those who are in the country illegally. Oh, that's for those of you who say that illegal immigration is a net positive. It's not. It's not a net positive. It never has been a net positive. Anyway, that is something important for y'all to note. Yes, they are lying about it. I wish I could say that they weren't. I wish I could say that there was some truth to the things that they were saying, that the left were saying, only because I just hate for them to always be so wrong. I do. I just hate to expose them on the regular. And I get it. None of you out there on the left will believe me when I say that. But I believe that our nation functions best when we have two functioning parties. When we have people on the right and the left who actually care about the country and are telling the truth, because it gives an opportunity for people to communicate their values, to communicate their beliefs, to communicate their positions, to back them up with facts, and then let you decide what direction you want to go. But right now, you have a left that is dysfunctional, that everything they're doing is based on lies. And it's based on theories that so far have never proven to be true. Whether it's environmentalism, whether it's race, their race and gender positions on DEI or critical race theory, their economic theory, their Keynesian economic theory has never panned out. I mean, nothing they've done, none of their theories that are based on feelings and not facts have ever proven out to be anything valid. It's all based on feelings. And the one thing I know about feelings is this: facts give a flying frig about your feelings. Facts are the facts, ma'am. Anyway, moving right along, another gun case. The Supreme Court has decided to pass on another gun case. I do not understand that one. I do not understand why they are refusing to take another gun case. Gun case. I just realized that I did not pull the story up. But here we go. I found it right here. I found it over at the SCOTUS blog. And once again, the Supreme Court has declined to take up another Second Amendment civil rights case. Once again, as reported by the folks over at SCOTUS blog, Supreme Court declines to hear gun control challenges. After considering them at 15 consecutive conferences, the Supreme Court on Monday declined to take up two challenges to gun control laws in Maryland and Rhode Island. In each case, three justices indicated that they would have granted the petition for review, leaving the challengers one vote short of the four needed for the court to hear oral arguments and weigh in on the merits of their case. In Snope v. Brown, the court declined to decide whether Maryland's ban on semi-automatic rifles, such as the AR-15 and the AK-47, violates the Second Amendment right to bear arms. 9 other states and the District of Columbia have similar bans. Maryland legislature enacted the law in 2013 in the wake of the 2012 shooting at Sandy Hook Elementary School in Newtown, Connecticut, in which a gunman killed 20 first graders and 6 adults. The full U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fourth Circuit rejected a challenge to the law in 2017. But the full Court of Appeals agreed to consider a new challenge in 2024, less than 2 years after the Supreme Court's decision on New York State and Rifle Pistol Association versus Bruin. In Bruin, the justices struck down New York's concealed carry law, holding that courts should only uphold gun restrictions in the future if there is a tradition of such regulations in U.S. history. In an opinion by Judge J. Harvey Wilkinson, who was reportedly on the short list to fill a vacancy created by the death of Chief Justice William Rehnquist during the George W. Bush administration, the full Fourth Circuit rejected the new challenge. The majority first concluded that the assault weapons are not protected by the Second Amendment's right to bear arms at all because, in essence, they are military-style weapons designed for sustained combat operations that are ill-suited for disproportionate to the need for self-defense. Now, that's what was originally stated. But that doesn't have anything to do with this. And what I'm starting to wonder is I'm kind of wondering this as I'm reading this to you. I'm starting to wonder if they decided that they didn't want to take up the gun cases this time because they're planning on taking up the gun cases in their next session. Trust me, there are plenty of these cases that are on their way, and a root not taking up the case, all it really does is it allows for everything to stay as is in the various jurisdictions. So in any jurisdiction where these sorts of bans on semi-automatic centerfire rifles have been found to be unconstitutional, then they remain unconstitutional. In places where these bans have been ruled to be constitutional, then they remain constitutional. So it doesn't really change anything in the landscape. There is no national standard yet. But if they do decide to rule on this, which, by the way, like I said, there are other cases that are coming through because these sorts of bans are all over the country. They could very well be waiting and planning on taking up the cases. So they didn't decide for or against the restriction or the bans. They just decided not to take up the ban. And anyway, so this is going to be an interesting one to watch as we start to come near to the end of this session, because I don't think they're hearing anymore. I think right now they're just going to be working on rulings, and throughout June we'll hear about all of the rulings that'll be coming out, all of the outcomes, shall we say, all of the decisions. So anyway, it's always an interesting month. Probably not going to be as interesting for us in the gun rights movement, simply because, well, there's not as much to hear. But anyway, it'll be very interesting to see what winds up happening. All right, moving on to our next story. By the way, I rarely actually talk about those decisions, those things in the show. And when I say it's very rarely is it an item listed in the rundown over there, right? Like this one right here. Here it is. And the reason why this one is because this is Trump literally going against Donald Trump. I mean, this is literally the exact opposite of a position that he had once taken when it comes to the Iran nuclear deal. So here's the thing. And so this is a piece here out of the New York Post. So back when he was running against Barack Obama, one of the things that the president noted, that President Trump, then candidate Trump, noted about the deal that was struck was that literally they were allowing them to continue to enrich uranium, right? So they were allowing Iran to continue to enrich uranium. Now, mind you, this is a country that has it's probably got more oil than any other country. It's one of the top producers of oil. There is no reason why they need excess energy or extra energy. And in fact, the amount of oil that they produce far exceeds anything that they actually need for energy production. So the only real reason they have for wanting to produce nuclear energy is for weapons. And he pretty much noted, and by the way, if you have uranium that is enriched to the degree that it can be used to produce energy, you're only a few weeks away from making it so that it's now weapons grade, from turning it into weapons grade. And so he basically said, look, allowing them access to billions of dollars that can be used to fund terrorism, but you're also now going to allow them or put them one step closer to having access to the bomb. Well, that seems to be what Trump representatives are negotiating right now in the bill, in the deal that they're trying to work out with Iran. It says here, being reported once again by the New York Post, U.S. offers Iran nuclear deal allowing temporary uranium enrichment. The Trump administration has pitched Iran on a revised nuclear deal that would allow Tehran to continue enriching uranium after it is signed, contradicting public statements by top U.S. officials. The proposal outline, first reported Monday by Axios, was submitted Saturday by White House Special Middle East Envoy Steve Witkoff. If agreed, the outline would allow Iran to continue enriching uranium domestically, but only for civilian use. Tehran will also have temporarily reduce its enrichment concentration to 3%, well below weapons grade of 90%. The period of low-level enrichment would have to be agreed on by both Washington and Tehran. The proposal also requires Iran to render its underground enrichment facilities non-operational for a mutually agreed period of time while limiting above-ground activity to producing nuclear reactor fuel under international guidelines. Now, if there's one thing that we have learned from Iran about about when it comes to nuclear stuff, right? Here's one thing we've learned about them. They lie. They lie, they lie, they lie. They say they're not going to enrich, and they enrich. They say they're not going to develop rockets, and they develop rockets. They say they're going to do this, and they don't. They say they don't fund terrorism, but they do. We know that they lie. If you give them the ability to do any enrichment, I guarantee you, they will do enrichment they will make it weapons grade enrichment. If you tell them to shut down the reason why they want them to shut down their underground enrichment is because it can't be monitored. It's harder to monitor those. It's harder to know what sort of enrichment they're doing there. Well, guess what? When it makes it hard to know what they're doing, it means it also makes it hard to tell when they've shut them down. And all of this is so that we'll remove sanctions, meaning we will allow them to sell billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars of oil that they will then be able to use to fund terrorism around the world. I don't get the President Trump. I have to believe that this is Witkoff. This is not President Trump. I find it very hard to believe that President Trump gave him the okay to do this. I have to believe that he's like, look, he's planning on and he's putting this stuff together. He's going back and he's saying, I'm going to go back to Trump and say, I got a deal. You should sign this because I got a deal. Now, mind you, this is the very same thing that Barack Obama did. So if we want to say that it was dumb when Barack Obama did it, then we have to say that it's dumb when Donald Trump's administration does it. The difference between the two is this. Number one, Obama actually handed them pallets of cash. That was number one. But number two, at least we can say so far, President Trump hasn't okayed this. President Trump hasn't said, yeah, this is cool. So I think we can at least give him a little bit of credit. Just a little bit. But if they wind up signing this deal, let's be clear, he winds up signing a deal that is exactly the sort of deal that he said was the dumbest idea, the dumbest deal ever, the dumbest deal ever, a treaty ever entered into. That's what he said about when Barack Obama did it. So I'm hoping that that somebody reminds him of his own words, because signing this deal would be that dumb. All right, folks. Well, hey, that brings us now to our parting shots. Parting shots are brought to you by Hog Holsters. Just go to hogholster.com, use the discount code The Rundown, all caps, no spaces, one word, and get your Hog Holster today. All right, we got a few of them here that are really, really simple. You might know that Pride Month started this month, right? Actually, according to our friends over at the Babylon Bee, fake news that you can trust, you would be wrong. That's right, because according to President Trump, or according to the Babylon Bee, Trump signs executive order to skip Pride Month. Today, now officially, is July 1st. That was actually out yesterday, so today would be July 2nd. Okay. That's funny. Yeah, no, we're not. Well, I've never celebrated Pride Month because Pride cometh before the fall. But all of that having been said, well, anyway, that's funny. Anyway, here we have now more Pride Month news. Man arrested for casting shadow on Pride crosswalk. Yeah, you might recall that there have been a number of what's the word I am looking for? You might recall that there have been a number of incidents where individuals like put skid marks on a pride flag that was on the ground in a sidewalk. Yeah, that actually happened. You had people who were arrested for hate crimes for stuff like that. Well, I'm sorry. Yeah, they were charged with hate crimes on top of, you know, for walking on the street because they dared deface the pride flag. Oh, hate, yeah, so they were charged with a hate crime. Anyway, not funny, but funny. All right, and then finally, as more and more now a poll or study, about 40% of climate scientists now are fighting back against the climate alarmism. Al Gore furiously blowing a hairdryer at ice caps to stop them from regrowing. Because yeah, they're regrowing, which doesn't really help their argument for global warming. Oops. Anyway. All right. Well, that's going to be about it for the program. Let's go ahead and give one last quick shout out to our sponsors. We're going to start with Hitman Industries, rifle and pistol caliber barrels available for you to purchase at hitmanindustries.net. The California Republican Assembly, the conscience of the Republican Party. Check them out at cragop.org. Then you got the best in concealed carry tactical holsters available for you on discount at hogholsters.com. That's HAWG holsters.com. And then finally, you can find all things tactical except the gun at uscombatgear.com. And with that, we're going to go ahead and call it a show. We very much appreciate you tuning in. We appreciate you liking and sharing the program and encouraging your friends to do the same. We will be back tomorrow on Taco Tuesday. Till then, y'all have fun, stay safe, and we will see you tomorrow.